Welcome to the second part of Sunday's lecture, the 15th of March. In this part of the lecture, we are going to discuss Brexit. And in order to have a feel or a deeper understanding of what happened with Brexit, we have to, first of all, get to know the differences between very minute and delicate concepts, the stages of economic cooperation. Economic cooperation between countries comes on different stages and different phases. The very primitive stage of economic cooperation and integration is called the preferential trade agreements. Now, before we go into the meaning of preferential trade agreement, we have to know that countries protect their local industries and local products and commodities by imposing some sort of customs tariffs. And customs tariffs, these are amounts of money that have got to be paid per items of specific commodities to the state. In other words, if you are an importer, if you are a businessman and you want to import some products from the outside world, from a foreign country, when you import these products and in the customs, before they enter your country, you have to pay to the government a specific sum of money on the quantities of the products that you have imported from abroad. Of course, this increases the prices of the commodities on the local markets. And this is how governments protect the local industries and the local products of their local markets. In addition to these money barriers, there are some other kinds of trade barriers, but this time they are not money, they are non-tariff barriers, like for example imposing some kind of specifications for the goods to be imported. Before we import specific goods, specific products, we stipulate as a government that some specific things must exist in these products and in these commodities, like things that are related to hygiene, for example, like things that are related to the quality of the products or the commodities and so on. And most of the time these specifications and conditions are required by highly developed countries, not by developing countries. Developing countries usually resort to imposing tariffs on the products that come from abroad, but highly developed countries, in addition to the money tariffs or the customs tariffs, they also impose non-tariff barriers. When you have a preferential trade agreement with another country, you have an agreement regarding importing and exporting goods while lowering the trade barriers between the parties to the agreement. In other words, you import from country A imports from country B, and country B exports to country B, while maintaining a low level of trade barriers, whether or be they money barriers or non-money barriers. This is the meaning of a preferential trade agreement, and you become committed to import a certain good or a certain commodity or a certain product from the country with which you are committed with a preferential trade agreement. So if many countries, for example, produce the same commodity, you become committed to give country B, your partner in the preferential trade agreement, you are committed to giving this country a preferential treatment. It must be number one on your list of the countries from which you are going to import this certain commodity. This is called a preferential trade agreement, and this is the most elementary and the most primitive stage of economic cooperation. The second level of economic cooperation is called the free trade area, and the free trade area is a bit deeper in cooperation than the preferential trade agreement. It is stronger than the preferential trade agreement. What does a free trade area mean? It means that parties to this area or member states in this area reach a deal or reach an agreement regarding almost abolishing all custom tariffs and also abolishing most of the non-tariff trade barriers between themselves. So it's not only that you lower the custom tariffs or lower the non-tariff barriers, but you almost get rid of them when you are a member of a free trade area. But in addition, in order to make sure that the goods and the commodities that are going to be circulated among the countries of the free trade area, there must be something called a certificate of origin that is given to each commodity that is going to be circulated in the free trade area. This is to make sure that these products are made within the countries of the free trade area and are not imported from other non-member states. Because if a country A that is a party to a free trade area just imports some goods and commodities from other countries in order to sell them again in the free trade area, this means that the country achieves profits that are not really hers. This means, or this is the reason why there must be some certificates of origin regarding all and every commodity or product that is going to be circulated within the free trade area, in order to make sure that these are the products, or these products have been really made in the countries of the free trade area and not imported from the outside world. A third stage of economic cooperation comes in the form of the customs union. And the difference between the free trade area and the customs union is that in the customs union, the member states oblige themselves to imposing the same rate of tariffs on the goods and the commodities that come to them from the outside world. So every country in the customs union is committed to imposing the same level of tariffs on the goods and the commodities that are imported into any one of them, because these goods and commodities are going to be circulated within the customs union free of charge or free of tariffs. So this means in effect that a country that is party to a customs union, an area of a customs union, becomes committed not to impose higher or lower custom tariffs on the goods and commodities that come to it from the outside world. So in essence, this means that the customs union is a free trade area plus a common external tariff. A common external tariff. The third stage of economic cooperation is when you have a common market. And the meaning of common market might be clear to all of us, because in a single market there is freedom of movement of factors of production, and the factors of production are capital, organization, and labor. So these are the three cornerstones of production. Any process of production needs these three factors: capital, money, organizers, entrepreneurs and laborers, workers. When you are in a single market, you have freedom of movement for all these factors of the process of production. Capital, money can come and go, can travel to any part of this market without restrictions, without paying fees, without paying taxes, for example. Laborers can move freely across this market. They can travel, they can come and go freely. And entrepreneurs as well can do their projects without any restrictions, because this is a single market. It is the same idea when a number of countries agree to establish or create a single market among themselves. There is freedom of movement of the factors of production. Labor can travel. So laborers in the EU can travel, can come and go in the member states as they wish. So people can travel from Poland, for example, to work in the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom is committed to accepting them and to giving them free movement without any restrictions. The United Kingdom's government cannot refuse access to those people, to those laborers. Capital, money, can flow between the member states of the common market without any restrictions, without imposing taxes, without having to pay fees to the governments, and so on. Entrepreneurs as well have the right to travel freely across the member states of any common market. But to have a common market is one thing, and to have a customs union is a different thing. So it's not necessary, if you have a single market or a common market, to have as well a customs union. A customs union is something, and a single market is something else. So we might have a common market without having a customs union, and we might have a customs union without having a common market. And if you have both, a common market plus a customs union, you have even a higher stage of economic integration and cooperation. This is called an economic union. An economic union. And in addition to this, you have something called economic and monetary union. If you decided to have a single currency, if you decided to unite all currencies in the form of one common currency that is circulated among all the countries of the economic bloc, this is called a monetary union. Again, we might have a monetary union without having a common market, without having a customs union, and so on. The highest stage of economic integration is called the complete economic integration, and this step or this phase usually comes with political integration as well. From what we have said, we can say that the European Union has reached a very, very high degree of economic integration, the economic and monetary union, bearing in mind that not all the member states of the European Union favored to be a member of the single currency zone or the Euro zone. The United Kingdom, for example, refused to join the Eurozone. Likewise, some other member states of the European Union refused to join the Eurozone. It is up to any country, to any member state of the European Union to decide to join the single European currency. So this is a matter that is up to the sovereignties of each state. Now, the EU has got 3 important treaties that gave it its current shape. The European Economic Community was established back in 1957 in the form of the Treaty of Rome. It started with just seven European countries, the most notable of which were France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and so on. 7 states started the European Economic Community. Then in 1992, in 1992 we had a treaty. This is 1992, not 2003. We had a treaty that is called the Treaty of Maastricht that changed the name of the European Community, that changed the name of the European Economic Community to the European Union. And then we had the Treaty of Lisbon in 2007, which became effective from 2009. And there was something very specific to the Treaty of Lisbon. Article 50 of the treaty gave any country the freedom to launch a process according to which this country can leave the bloc. This is Article 50. There are some key events that we have got to know about the Brexit. In 2016 there was a referendum on Brexit that was offered by the government of David Cameron, and a very slight majority of the people were in favor of leaving the bloc. And by the way, the results of that Brexit came as a shock to the Conservative government, because all the polls before the referendum day suggested that most of the people would vote to remain as a member of the European Union, especially the youth. That's why David Cameron was somehow assured that the result of the referendum would be supportive of his position. David Cameron and most of the members of his government campaigned for the Remain campaign. They wanted Britain to remain as a member of the European Union. And by the way, it was a Conservative government as well in 1973 that took Britain into the European Economic Community under the government of Edward Heath in 1973. On the 29th of March 2017, Theresa May triggered Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty. She proposed a bill in Parliament that would trigger or start the process of British exit from the European Union according to the procedures that are mentioned in this article. And according to this article, the United Kingdom should have left the European Union 1 year after the triggering of the article itself. So Britain should have left the European Union on the 29th of March 2018. But afterwards, Theresa May started to negotiate the exit treaty with the European Union. And Theresa May faced a lot of problems regarding this treaty. It's enough to know that the treaty or the draft withdrawal agreement was rejected 3 times by the House of Commons. This means that a good majority of the members of the Conservative Party, the party of the government, the party of Theresa May herself, declined the withdrawal agreement. The controversial issue in this agreement was the Irish backstop, the status of Northern Ireland. The European Union was very keen to preserve the conditions and the provisions of the Good Friday Agreement or the Belfast Agreement. The Belfast Agreement or the Good Friday Agreement was the agreement that ended years of conflict and bloodshed in the province, in Northern Ireland, between the Irish community and the Protestant community. It stipulated that both communities should share power between themselves or among themselves. So that was the case. And among the most important provisions of the agreement was sustaining free movement of people and free movement of goods and services between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Now we all know that Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland are situated or located on the same island. It's the island of Ireland that was divided back in 1921-1922. The United Kingdom gave independence to the southern part of the country, and it kept its control over the northern part because there was a Protestant majority of the people living there in the north. But the United Kingdom gave a local parliament and some kind of home rule or self-rule to the people of the north. So that was the case between 1922 and 1972. For 50 years, politics was going on and the political process was operative in the north. But the problem was that the Catholic minority developed feelings of injustice. They felt that they are deprived of the good positions, deprived of wealth, deprived of having important positions in the country, in administering the country. All of the time they were outside of the governments that were governments by the Protestant parties, not the Catholic ones. That's why they staged some kind of civil protests and marches that were severely faced by the police authorities of the province, and a number of people died. And from that day, violence started to take place in the province, and the Catholic community developed its own militias, and the Protestant community developed their own as well. And about by 1998, the year of ending the bloodshed in the province, about 3,200 people lost their lives, in addition to hundreds and thousands of injured people. Both communities reached an agreement under the auspices of then Prime Minister Tony Blair and then Prime Minister of the Republic of Ireland, Bertie Ahern. What we care about here was that there was a stipulation in the Good Friday Agreement, or the Belfast Agreement, that said that the borders between the north and the south have got to be open for the movement of people and open for the movement of goods. So this means that the people of the north can travel to the south without passports, without visas, and the people of the south can also travel to the north with the same procedures. Goods and services can come and go without restrictions, without imposing tariffs, without customs, without inspection, and so on and so forth. And the Republic of Ireland is an important country in the EU, and the EU started to defend the status of Northern Ireland after Britain leaves the bloc. The European Union was very keen to keep the provisions of the Good Friday Agreement as they are. The European Union was very keen to defend the interests of the Republic of Ireland, because the Republic of Ireland is a member state in the bloc and it's not going to leave. And in the draft withdrawal agreement that Theresa May reached with the European Union, it was stipulated that Northern Ireland was going to have a special status. The withdrawal agreement stated that unless the EU and the UK reach an agreement, and until the UK and the EU reach an agreement about the future economic relationships between themselves, Northern Ireland is going to maintain or to have a special status. It's going to be like a member of the European Union. In other words, it's going to keep its economic relationships with the Republic of Ireland as they are. There is not going to be a tough border between the north and the south. In other words, no extra measures are going to be reimposed on the border. No checks of goods, no inspection of goods is going to be reinstated. No restrictions on the movement of the people. We all know that the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland is supposed to be an international border. This means that if the people travel or cross this border, they have to have some sort of special procedures like visas, like so on. When goods and services travel between the north and the south, there have got to be some sort of taxes or custom tariffs, but according to the Good Friday Agreement, as we say, all of these things were cancelled, and the withdrawal agreement of the United Kingdom from the EU, according to what Theresa May has reached with the EU, according to this agreement, the Northern Ireland province would have that very special status. It would be treated as part of the EU, not part of the United Kingdom. That was called the Irish backstop. A backstop is a term in English that points to the net that surrounds a tennis court. When people play tennis, they play tennis on a special court, and this court must be surrounded by a net so that the ball does not stray outside of the playground. So this is called a safety net, And likewise, there was a safety net for Northern Ireland that was imposed by the bloc, that was imposed by the EU. But because this was going to make some form of economic separation between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom, many members of the Conservative Party objected to this idea, objected to the Irish backstop, to these provisions that were mentioned in the draft withdrawal agreement. And Theresa May tried many times to convince her own party members in the House of Commons of the agreement, but they categorically rejected the agreement, and they rejected it not one time or two times, but 3 times in a row. 3 times, 3 consecutive times, the agreement was rejected by the members of the House of Commons and the members of even the party of Theresa May itself. And consequently, Theresa May had to render her resignation as a leader of the party and consequently as a prime minister, and there was an internal election in the Conservative Party which Boris Johnson won in July 2019. And as we said in the previous lectures, Boris Johnson declared the snap election on the 12th of December 2019, in which his party managed to have a big majority of seats, about 80 seats ahead of all other parties, ahead of the Labour Party. And that was a big victory for the Conservative Party. And Boris Johnson reintroduced his own version of the withdrawal agreement with the EU to the members of the House of Commons, and this time the agreement was supported because there is a clear majority for the Conservative Party within the House of Commons. So Parliament approved Johnson's Brexit deal with the EU. And the UK left the EU on 31st of January 2020. Now what we want to discuss finally is that was there any difference between the Brexit deal that was reached by Boris Johnson? Was there anything different from the withdrawal agreement of Theresa May? And the answer is there is a very small and minute difference, and this minute difference is related, yes, again, to the status of Northern Ireland, but the rest of the agreement is the same version. The rest of the agreement is the same version of Theresa May, but the only difference consisted in the status of Northern Ireland. Instead of Northern Ireland becoming a de facto part of the EU, Boris Johnson reached an agreement with the EU that the future of the province itself and the future of the economic relationships between the province and the Republic of Ireland are going to be in the hands of the Stormont Parliament, in the hands of the local Parliament of Northern Ireland. This means that the Parliament, the local Parliament of Northern Ireland, is going to say whether it wants to keep the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland open, or whether they want to impose some kind of restrictions, some sort of tariffs in the future if the UK does not reach an agreement with the EU regarding the future economic relationships between the UK as a whole and the bloc. So that was the major difference between the draft withdrawal agreement that was reached by Theresa May and the draft withdrawal agreement that was reached by Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson put the whole matter in the hands of the Parliament of Stormont, the Parliament of Northern Ireland. And as a consequence, most of the members of the House of Commons, specifically we're talking about the members of the Conservative Party, accepted the agreement. But what's the secret behind this initiative or behind this tactic? Now, the government, the local government in Northern Ireland is a power-sharing government, but the Protestants are very strong there. As we know, the Protestants represent the majority of the people in the north, and the Protestant parties are stronger than the Catholic parties. And it is usually the case that the First Minister of the province is a Protestant from the Democratic Unionist Party. And this is the party that got into an agreement with Theresa May in 2017 under the title of Supply and Confidence Agreement. So the Protestants are still strong in the north, in the province of Northern Ireland, and they support the union with the United Kingdom. So if you put it in the hands of the Parliament of Stormont, this means effectively that the Parliament of Stormont is only going to support the position of the United Kingdom in whatever negotiations that are going to happen between the EU and the UK, and they are going to be just an agent of the government of the United Kingdom. But at the same time, you're going to give a hope to the Catholic community in the province that one day they might form a government of their own, one day they might have a better grip of political power in the north, and perhaps they are going to impose their opinion. So it was really an intelligent tactic that that made everybody happy and made everybody content that things are within their grips and things are going to work in their favor and they are going to control everything. The members of the Conservative Party are happy with this agreement of Boris Johnson with the status of Northern Ireland, because they think that power in Northern Ireland is controlled by the Protestants, and the Protestants are unionists. They want to keep the union with the United Kingdom. The unionists themselves in Northern Ireland are happy and contented that things are in their own hands. They can do whatever they like regarding the future of the province and the relationship with the Republic of Ireland. The Catholics as well are happy and content that one day they might have a bigger role to play in the politics of the province, and perhaps they are going to impose their opinion and so on. So everybody became content that the future of the province and the future of the relationship of the province is in his own hands. And it was really a very, very intelligent tactic by Boris Johnson. So this is the story of the UK withdrawal from the EU. And of course the UK had to pay something like 33 billion pounds sterling to the EU as a fine for leaving the bloc. And this was some form of economic punishment that would deter any other member state in the European Union from trying to think of leaving the bloc, so that the bloc would not dissolve. So this is the story of British exit, and this is the end of our lecture regarding the two important issues, current issues in British politics: the story of Scotland's independence or bid to independence and the story of British exit from the European Union. Thank you so much, and we meet again on a second lecture regarding the environment of the French political system. Thank you so much and goodbye.